So, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, my name is Christina Ong, and I'm the moderator for today's session. All right, welcome to the second webinar organized by Malaysian Corpus Research Network this year. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. Please keep yourself muted throughout both speakers' presentation. You can turn on your camera throughout the session if you wish to. Type your inquiries, if any, in the chat box during the presentation. We will have the Q&A session after every presentation, so please keep your question. Raise your hand, turn on your webcam, unmute, and ask your question. All right, so we will have you can choose to type your questions in the meeting chat if you're feeling shy. And finally, we appreciate your feedback. So please fill in the feedback form that will be shared by my colleague before you leave this Zoom meeting. So without further ado, allow me to introduce the first speaker for today, Dr. Roselind Wan from Curtin University. Dr. Roselind is particularly interested in understanding the intersection between language, culture, and identity of indigenous communities in Borneo. Her research interests cover areas with anthropological linguistics, documentary linguistics, sociolinguistic, and education. So her documentation works are archived in Pacific and Regional Archive for Digital Sources in Endangered Cultures, in short, Paradisec, and is currently developing an ethnographic Kayan online dictionary. So she'll be sharing with us some insights from the Kayan Legacy project in Sarawak this afternoon. So the floor is yours, Dr. Roselind.
Thank you so much, Christina. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so privileged to also be representing my community from Sarawak to share with you on what I am currently doing, or what I've done, and what I've done and what I'm currently doing. So this is going to be an insights from the Kayan Legacy project in Sarawak, and I'm sharing with the Malaysian Corpus and Applied Linguistic, the MCRN. I'm so privileged to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. But let me begin by what we in Curtin like to do. This is how we like to introduce ourselves. Okay, so I would like to begin by paying my respects to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander members of the community, by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which Curtin Perth campus is located, the Whadjuk people of the Nuer Nation. I recognize the continuing connection to the land, sea, and community, and pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. I would also like to acknowledge the indigenous peoples of Malaysia, especially the indigenous peoples of Sarawak, on which Curtin Malaysia is located. I recognize also the continuing connection to the land, sea, and community, and pay my respects to elders past and present and emerging. So as an indigenous scholar from the Kayan tribe, I am also very grateful for the wisdom passed down from our elders and their continuous encouragement and support in my work. Okay, so very briefly, this is what I'm going to cover. It seems quite a bit. Yeah, I will briefly explain what is language documentation, then give a brief introduction to the indigenous peoples of Malaysia, as well as the indigenous languages and the status of the indigenous languages of Malaysia. Then I'll bring you your attention briefly to the Kayan people of Sarawak, and also looking at just a little bit of a history and a background of the people that I'm working with. The origin, the migration, and the different groups, Kayan group, and also the very unique social structure of the Kayan. Then I will proceed on to highlighting the Kayan Legacy project, which is, of course, the language documentation. And then I will demonstrate how archival material, see, pronunciation is very difficult for Kayan, it provides a very rich data for corpus of indigenous languages, like Christina said just now, my works are currently archived in Paradisic, and I also have the Kayan language website, as well as I'm also working on a Kayan dictionary. Yeah. Okay. So very briefly on what is language documentation, which is also known as documentary linguistics. I think we all know that it is a subfield of linguistics, but particularly what we do, we concentrate on the collection or the analysis of primary data for the purpose of documenting and describing languages. So it generally addresses languages on which no or very few previous studies exist, and therefore it relies so much on the works that we carry on within the community. Yeah? So field work within the indigenous community itself. So it compiles language records of a broad range of representative natural written and oral text, as well as the other works such as transcription, translation, and annotation in order to preserve. I think the main thing here is to preserve primary data. Yeah, primary data, and to make them accessible to others. So we're looking at linguists and the speech community that would benefit from what we are doing, and also researchers of other disciplines who might be interested also to look at the language and the people, yeah, for future purposes. Okay, but the basic research aim of language documentation is to record how native speakers behave linguistically and how they use language to express various facts and topics in different natural occurring situations or contexts. Okay, so why is it important for us to document? I think this is something that we have to reflect upon, particularly as Malaysians. We need to also look beyond the main languages, and to also look at how is the situation like for our many diverse communities in West Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak, yeah? The indigenous languages of Malaysia. Yeah, because I think there's this great worry, I think, among scholars, at least from my point of view. There's a great worry that there's this impending loss on the language, on the indigenous language. If you look at what UNESCO Atlas of the World's Languages describe, they say that 230 languages have been extinct since 1950, and a third of the world's languages have fewer than 100 speakers left. Yeah, although the indigenous population is actually very little, but they speak about 80% of the languages of the world. Similarly, I think in Malaysia, if we bring into the context in Malaysia, the indigenous community are very small in population, in numbers, but they speak the most diverse languages. If you look later in Sabah, how many languages do they speak? And in Sarawak itself, how many languages do they speak? Yet the population is very small. So there is a big threat. There's a big threat for loss of indigenous languages. So that's the reason why I think it is very important for us to look at how we can help indigenous communities and how we can also support the documentation of the indigenous languages in Malaysia. Okay, I think I would go straight to the last point there. Most importantly, a generation of speakers of a language who has shifted from its language may return to the language at any time in the future. Where would they find the resources if the language has been lost or no record of the language is found? Yeah, so I think what we are doing currently, we are trying to develop that rich data for future scholars and future generation of Kayan in this context to go to if they would like to revitalize or learn the language, because even now a lot of our younger generation do not necessarily speak the language. Yeah. So it's very important for us to reflect upon how is the situation for our indigenous languages in Malaysia. I would always want to argue that spend more attention on the indigenous languages, perhaps, yeah, because the other main languages, a lot of people are already working on them. How many of us are actually working on indigenous languages? Yeah, so that's what I would like to throw to the audience today. Okay, so very briefly, yeah, I mentioned about the indigenous communities in Malaysia. If you look at Peninsular Malaysia, they make up only 0.7% of the population, but I think they speak a lot of different languages as well. Yeah, of which all of these languages are also threatened or endangered. While in Sarawak, we are the majority, the indigenous communities in Sarawak, we make up about 70.5% of the population of Sarawak. I would like to highlight here probably the term of orang asal is referred in Sarawak. So if you are referring to indigenous communities in Sarawak, we would prefer to be called orang asal, whereas in Peninsular Malaysia, I think we are more familiar with orang asli. So there's a little bit of a distinction there. And in Sabah, they are called anak negeri. And there is also quite a big number of indigenous communities in Sabah, making up 58.6% of the population. Yeah. So a little brief note here. While the Malays are also indigenous to Malaysia, they are not categorized as indigenous peoples because they constitute the majority and are politically, economically, and socially dominant. Okay, so yeah, in Sarawak, there are 40 indigenous groups. Yeah, but let's see. I think I will show here. Okay, this is the indigenous status as of now in Sarawak. If you look at the expanded graded intergenerational disruption scale, which was proposed by Lewis and Simon, they look at how they use this to measure the status of a language in terms of endangerment and or development. Yeah, so according to Omar and Norahim 2020, most of, if not all, indigenous languages in Malaysia are threatened. So if you look at this scale, if you think of the Malay language, I think the Malay language is not threatened. It might fall under national category 1, and a few other languages would probably fall under 2, Mandarin, Iban in Sarawak, they have Iban degrees in Sarawak, I think even in UPSI. So maybe it falls under different categories here, but obviously for the Kayan is actually identified as 6B, which is a threatened language. So it's endangered according to Gordon 2005. Okay, let me move this one a bit. So you see Seru, Pegu, Bilion, and Lala in Sarawak are already extinct. Yeah. Okay. It's just a very brief status of indigenous languages in Malaysia. Now I bring your attention to the Kayan of Sarawak. As you can see here, we are found in the region of Baram. This is Baram and Belaga Bintulu, Bintulu and Belaga. And yeah, you would find mostly the Kayan in Baram, basically, and also in Belaga and Tatau. Yeah, the current population of the Kayan in Sarawak is estimated to be about 27,000. Okay, let's look at the different varieties of the Kayan language. There are various variants of the language spoken by Kayan across different regions in the Baram, Tutu, Tatau, and Belaga. And of all the variants, the Umakpu variety is the formal language. So we recognize the Umakpu variety as the formal language, whereby the Bible is written in this particular variant, as well as the dictionary as well. But you have other various variants spoken in other longhouses, in, for example, the Uma Pliao spoken in Long Miri, and the Uma Bawang variant and the Uma Buluvo variant spoken in Long Panai. So my variant is Uma Buluvo, from where I am from. Okay, so Kayan language is not a recognized language in Malaysia, and there is no government or institutional support for language education and revitalization. So therefore, this lack of support for the language affects language ideologies and attitudes about the language, which can threaten the vitality and endanger the language. Okay, so again, the Kayan come from Kalimantan. So we were originally from central Borneo, somewhere in Upper Kayan. If you look at the map of Borneo here, so the Kayan are originally from Usanapo, and the Upper Kayan from central Kalimantan. But sometimes in the 18th century, the Kayan who are currently in Sarawak, they moved to the Baram area and the Baloi area, and the Baleh area and the Rejang area as well. But the most significant numbers would be in the Baram. And of course, there are also Kayan in the Mahakam and the other areas in Kalimantan. Okay. How did they migrate to Sarawak? There is no history, there is no written history. So what we know about the migration pattern and the history of the Kayan is through the oral tradition. If you look at, for example, as an example, of the Kayan Uma Buluvo, how did they come to Sarawak, and how did they come to where they are currently located in Long Panai? So you can see here they have moved quite a lot of movements by this particular group of Kayan, yeah, the Uma Buluvo Kayan. So over how many 100 years? Over 100 years, they have moved 8 times, yeah, from their ancestral homeland to now where they are located in Long Panai. So Nahakule, 1864, 1888. Again, this is all based on oral history, and it is just like you estimate the date. Actually, it's not exact. So people estimate the date of the movements based on when was the Japanese occupation, for example. When did the book come, for example? So they estimate that based on the oral history and making guess of what year they would have been in that particular place. So we rely on the oral tradition so much for understanding our history. Okay, I mentioned this already. So these are the different variants of the Kayan, of which they are spoken in the various longhouses in the Baram, Tinja, Blaga, Apo, Kayan, Aka, Patah. This is all within the 4th division, yeah, in Sarawak. Okay, moving on to the Kayan social structure, I would like to highlight this because I found this quite interesting when I look at how that the Kayan is, the Kayan is highly stratified. You can say that we are a highly stratified society, whereby we are grouped into 3 classes. To have the aristocrat, who are the Ipun Uma, and the Maran or the Maran Uma, and then you have the common people, who are the Panyin, and then in the past you used to have the Dipan, who are the slaves. So by default, the Maran Uma are actually the leaders of the Kayan. So they are the ruling class, so-called the ruling class of the Kayan. Yeah, and the Panyin are the followers of the aristocrat, and there is no more slaves. Yeah, but even now in the longhouses, you would imagine the headman and the leaders in the longhouse should always come from the Maran Uma. So this is something very unique, because I believe for other indigenous communities, they do not necessarily follow this, but this is one of the tradition that perhaps the Kayan still want to stick to. Yeah. Moving to the Kayan Legacy project and looking at the language documentation. Again, this is an offshoot of my PhD study on the Kayan language, culture, and identity. So Dahun is language, culture, adat, and asan, which is identity. Yeah, so this is an offshoot of what I have studied, what I did for my PhD. And I've been privileged to be given a grant of a research fund to document the language by the Endangered Language Fund, which is a fund from the USA, and as well as a fund from my previous University Technology Petronas. So I am going to look at 3 projects that I have done. The first one is the ELF Language Legacy project in 2019, which is documenting the Kayan oral traditions. The project was led by Dr. Sumati Riganathan, who was at the time my PhD supervisor. And the collaborators were Dr. Inge Kral from Australian National University, and I was a student in 2019, graduating students. And the second project, the ELF Language Legacy project, documenting our language in the sky, is led by me. This is my project. And then the third project is the knowledge transfer program. I think we are quite familiar with KTP. This is where UTP again funded this particular KTP event, whereby I had the opportunity to come down to Miri at that time over 2 weeks to help to I was not teaching, but I get the elders who are good at the tradition to actually teach the Kayan to learn how to sing the oral tradition, for example, and to learn how to dance the traditional dance, for example. So, and all these 3 projects are actually an effort in documenting not just the language per se, but also the culture of the Kayan people. Okay, so what were documented? Oral traditions. Yeah, oral tradition, the different traditions that have been lost, like probably the muvui. I will show you the muvui later. And then the takna for over a long while, once from the conversion of the Kayan to Christianity, I think over almost 50 years, I think, some of the tradition were not practiced because of the belief that if you practice some of the oral tradition, that would mean you are following the old religion. Yeah, so for over time, some of the tradition were not practiced. But in recent time, there has been a kind of interest, deep interest among the community to revisit the oral tradition, particularly the takna. Yeah, the takna is almost lost basically among the community. Only the old generation are actually able to sing it. But in recent times, and also because of what we are doing, younger generation and people about my age or slightly younger than me are starting to learn how to sing the takna. And then the other cultural practices like dancing, the different ways to dance, for example, those are the things that we try to capture in the 3 projects, or at least in the 2 projects that we have done. Yeah, so who were involved in those projects? It is important for us to always engage the communities. For my project, I involved the Kayan community of Long Panai. That is the first project. So we went, of course, we have to go through the necessary process, like getting access, getting ethics, not necessarily ethics clearance on our part, but making sure that the project that we want to do has received clearance from the community and it's endorsed by the community. So this is very important, particularly if the researchers are from outside the culture, for example. we need to get consent from the community in order to go in and then do the documentation. But as an insider, I think it was a privilege for us because I am an insider. So a lot of things are quite easy for us because I was able to do that as an insider. So we collaborated with the Kayan Pelongosan and as well as the Sarawak Museum. The curator of the Sarawak Museum, who is also a Kayan, supported what we are doing. So I think for any documentation, particularly among indigenous communities, we should forefront the community as well in our works. Yeah. Okay, so how was the language documented? So audio. So we have audio and then we have video. At the moment, I have not done any transcription, major transcription. I did a few, but not as much as I would have liked it. But probably in the future, I will revisit and do more. But what we have done so far, we have captured quite a bit of audio and video recordings, which, as we mentioned, are archived in Paradisic and the other website, database, which I will show to you later. Okay, so just very quickly what we have captured. So we captured, for example, some examples. These are not limited to this few examples, but there are more that I do not have time to show here. For example, the process of making home, for example. So in the past, this is a very important item to be had by the people if they want to go to the farm. But of course, over time, home become just a decorative item. And we have lost, I mean, my generation do not know how to make home, for example. So we want to learn this, to learn how or to understand how this is done. So we spoke with the older generation of Kayan women who would still have the memory of doing this as a young girl. So they are doing this. But of course, we need to be able to capture not just in video or in audio, but perhaps later on when we translate it, then we would also have captured the written Kayan text. I think that would be quite interesting to do for corpus linguistics projects, I think. So the explanation on the process of homemaking, for example, what are the materials used, design, what would be the purpose for the home. Yeah, so I did the interview. So the interview was in Kayan. So that again is a documentation aspect of the language. We document the language and then we document the artifact of the home itself. And we also have, this one is completely gone. I think no, as far as I know, people in my longhouse do not practice this anymore. This woman has this in her keep, but I'm not sure when she would use it, aside from the time that she demonstrated this. But in the past, it would be something that was a very important musical instrument among the Kayan. So we captured this as well. And then we captured, of course, we are familiar with the tattoo. And the tattoo among the Kayan women, which no longer practice, these are only found among the older generation Kayan. I do not have them. My sisters, my elder sisters don't have them. The last person in our household who would have this would have been my late mom. So this would be a woman that I quite younger to my mom, yeah, the first generation Kayan. So the second generation Kayan, like my elder sister and myself, we do not have this. So it would be good for the Kayan to be able to capture this and talk to them about what is the how did they do it, what were involved, who did it for them, and so on and so forth. Again, capturing the culture, documenting the culture, but also documenting the language. Yeah. Okay, so I am going to play a very short clip, audio clip of the Muvoi. So the Muvoi is a village crier. In the past, we didn't have loudspeaker we do not have internet, we do not have handphone. We only communicate via going from house to house, for example, to tell people, if there's anything that we want to share with them. But in the days, they would have someone dedicated to actually make announcement so the headman would have something to say or to tell the people in the longhouse. Then he would get this village crier, tell him what to say, then he would go around and shout it out, and people would listen. Oh, okay, there's a prayer, or there's a death, or there's something going on. So we need to listen to the call, and then we need to adhere to what this person is asking us to do. So I'm going to play it a bit. So this one, I have translated this on the left, the Kayan language. The Kayan language on the left, and then the English language on the right. Yeah, just
wait.
Yeah.
So, more voice.
Do you hear them?
The
sound?
Take two.
But maybe you increase the volume a little.
Okay, so this is a call to go to do cleaning the next day, right? Oh, everyone, let's go. Tomorrow, even those who just came back from the town, let's all go, something like that. Yeah. Let's move to the other one. So the other one is the takna, the one that I said was lost for a couple of years, and then was revisit, and then now we are trying to learn how to do this. Yeah, particularly for the younger generation. So again, this is narration. It is impromptu. In the past, it is not like this. In the past, it would be storytelling of someone told me it would be like Shakespeare kind of storytelling, Shakespeare. But we have totally lost that. Yeah. So what we can do now, what our people can do now is impromptu salutation or demonstration of welcome. Yeah, for different situation. For this situation, it was more of like to honor me or to celebrate me in a way. So she said that, oh, I've been called by, I've been called to do the takna. They call me, they sought me out, they seek word stories of the past. My dear child of my bosom, you asked me about life in the past. So she is actually narrating me. Impromptu narrating me. I tell you, my child, I shall tell you the life our ancestors of the past. They were of one heart, like men laid out for drying paddy. So a paper was written on this particular takna. Okay, I will bring you to the other archival material that I have done. Perhaps you may be interested to explore them later. Okay. Okay, so for this one, the materials that we collected in the first project are actually archived here. So if you register in Paradisec, you would be able to access the materials that we have done. So you have women singing tekna, men singing tekna, making hats and bamboo, beading, tattoos, and so on and so forth. If you look at this collection, the collection from Malaysia is not that many, but you have collection from all over the world. Yeah, from all over the world. If I type here Malaysia, I think you would have someone written by Malay here, and this one is Dusun, Sabah, Hiroki, and this is Kral, our collaborator in ANU. She deposited this for us. And then also, this one is the Semai that she did with Dr. Sumati, and this is the one that she did with us. So you would find our material here in Paradisec. So not many actually from Malaysia. So if any one of you are interested to do language documentation, we really welcome more scholars to pursue this basically, yeah. And some of the works are also archived here. So if you click here, you will see some of the works that we have done here as well. Okay, and then this is my Kayan language. It's only in weak site so far. I have not migrated it to a better platform. But what I have done, this is the materials that I have captured in my second project, project. Yeah. So if you browse here, you have speeches in Kayan, you would have Kayan phrases. So we try to also provide phrases for people who would like to learn Kayan. Then you have the tekna, then you have the audio, and so on and so forth. A lot. Yeah. So I have some transcription as well. So this one, I have this transcription as well. Okay, so that's that, and then this is the one that I'm currently working on. This is the Baram Living Dictionary. This is a website that is developed by I don't know what is who developed this already. This was not developed by me. I only used the platform that is already there. Yeah, Living Dictionary. Living Dictionary, so Kayan Baram. So if you press here,
Aban,
okay, Aban,
Abo, Aduh,
okay. So if you look at this,
Ajun,
so I would have also the example in English and the example in Kayan. Yeah, so a lot of data for scholars who would like to explore corpus in indigenous language to go to. Yeah, so I'm hoping that more people are interested to do corpus linguistic in indigenous languages. Yeah. Okay, so my last slide, is it the last one? Conclusion and way forward. I think it is important for us to reflect on how we can support the indigenous communities, particularly the indigenous languages. Probably go beyond what is currently the norm, probably just go beyond that. Explore if we can work on developing corpus of indigenous languages. Yeah, so we need to develop corpus with a large amount of language data and information collected from indigenous speakers, and to also reflect on the diverse aspects of indigenous people lives. Yeah, so that studies must reflect our reference to life, living, culture, custom, beliefs, history, heritage, ecology, mythology, and other aspect of the indigenous communities. So I think we would like to invite more scholars to work on the indigenous languages. Yeah, so that's it. I think that's the last one. Oh yeah, this is the last one basically. So Raina asked me, so where are you at, madam? I said, I don't know where I'm at. I'm here. Probably I'm here. I'm at document audio recording. Just recording this, depositing, and a little bit of transcription. But a little bit of translation, but not really. There's so much more that we can do. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you so very much, Dr. Rosalind, for the insightful talk. I think you are doing very meaningful work preserving indigenous languages. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, do you have any questions or comments for Dr. Rosalind? You can unmute yourself and ask your question. Anyone? I guess I can start first. Dr. Rosalind, do you know any I don't know, any singer or somebody from the Kayan community who has been, I don't know, producing songs or whatsoever in the Kayan language that we can listen to, we have access to?
I believe there is a Kayan singer, Urai, by the name of Urai.
Right. Okay.
Urai, yeah, I don't know the full
So
name.
we can
Urai.
YouTube her? Can we?
Yeah, sure, Urai, yeah. But otherwise, they probably would have songs in Kayan, but Christian songs mostly, yeah, in the church. Yeah.
Good. So anyone has any question, you can either type it in the chat box or raise your hand and ask.
I have a question, Doctor. So Dr. Rosalind, just now you showed us the social structure of the Kayan community. So I'm wondering if the social structure has some, sort of association or influence to the language variety that you also showed to us.
Good question, Rena. Not that I know of. We all speak the same.
I see. Yeah.
That is to my knowledge. Yeah. Yeah.
But could could you still see the social structure, existing until now, or has that been, lost?
No, it is still being practiced. Basically, I think there's different opinion among the Kayan community whether we should still follow the they call it the ruling or the practices of the classes, because the Maran Huma, they are the default leaders in the longhouse or even the community leaders, and some wonder whether this is still relevant in the day where leadership, roles can still be, from among not necessarily aristocrat, but again, this is something that because the Kayan would still like to preserve culture, so as practice, I think in the longhouse they would still go back to deciding who are the family that are originally from the aristocrat, and they would be the one that will be appointed as the Tua Kampung or the Temegong or the Pemanca and so on and so forth. And it's, I don't know, I wouldn't want to say, but there's this debate among particularly the younger generation, whether this is something that they want to continue. But again, culture is important. It's part of the identity of the Kayan. And if that is something that shows a unique feature of the Kayan as as an indigenous community, I think it's also important that we uphold to that particular practice. Yeah, despite the modern ways we look at things.
See,
Do I answer that question?
yes, you did.
Yeah.
Diana, anyone else? Anyone who is
Hi, hello, can you hear me? Oh, sorry. It's my camera. It's funny. Hi. Sorry. Hi, Dr. Rosalind.
Hello.
Thank you so much. Hi.
Hi.
My name is Jie. So I'm Christina. We are like master. The classmates.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah. So it's nice to hearing your presentation. It's wonderful. So I'm in Australia. So what I'm doing is quite relevant to your work. I'm helping with Australian government to help the indigenous community to revive their languages. So so I have two questions. So the first one is, do you think is Kayan language considered as a healthy language in Malaysia? Healthy means like the language is still spoken by all the generations.
Adakah? Nampak pakai mesin.
Healthy as in being useful and I'm sure from my own point of view, I think it's good to have. Did you mean healthy in the sense of what? Sorry, can you clarify?
Yeah, so I just maybe you mentioned, but maybe I missed that part. So do you think Kayan language is a healthy language in Malaysia? Is it still healthy? So healthy, like
in the sense of vibrant. You mean vibrant?
Yes,
vibrant meaning that people are still speaking it.
Yes, still speaking it by all generations.
Yeah. Healthy as in vibrant, as whether it's still being used or spoken by the generation. I would say the older generation, in my generation, I'm pushing 60. So those 40-ish above, I think would still be able to speak it. So it's still healthy in that sense for that generation. But those younger ones would, I guess, similar with the other languages, we would prefer to learn how to speak the main languages first, English, for example, and then the Bahasa Malaysia, the Malay language. To the point where we would prioritize that, because that would mean advantageous opportunities and all that for economic opportunities, education, for the younger generation, because I think that is where we are focused as an emerging community. I think coming out from the longhouse, we want to position ourselves, we want to be able to compete, then we need to be able to speak the language of the place where we want to survive in, right? Because we have moved from the move away from the longhouse. So basically, younger generation wouldn't really know how to speak it unless they are brought up still in the longhouse. But most of those who have moved out would have a mixed sense of prioritizing the other languages, and then Kayan would be probably the secondary language. Not so healthy among the younger one. My children, for example, would not know how to speak Kayan, just a little bit of vocabularies, but not really able to speak it in having a conversation, for example. So that's really frightening for us, because we know that at some point they would have lost the language.
Hopefully not. So this is why what you're doing is very important. And also, and my second question is this Kayan language taught in like local schools or childcare centers?
No. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Hopefully in the near future.
Yes. Let's come in and try and help out. No, it's not being taught.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ye.
Thanks, Yanjay. That she actually brought up a very good question. So what efforts have been done besides you documenting the languages? So what has the community done to preserve the language or to teach the language to the younger generation?
I think efforts are ongoing by different people, by a different group of people. Of course, in my projects, I have the communities, the elders from representing the longhouses in the Baram, who contributed to the documentation. So that's a way that they are also involved in. And I think the project that we did have also provide them with the confidence to do the cultural thing, like to do the singing, for example. Otherwise, they would be shy to do it. Otherwise, they would be a little bit ashamed to go to, you know, to be out there and present themselves. But I think the works that we do to say that this is important, this is unique, and what I've observed so far, there have been a great change in the way people look at the culture. People are no more shy to learn how to sing the takna, for example. And I guess as a community, we are doing a bit of how we can, the little things, I mean, the little things that they can do would be just to present ourselves wherever that we are. We try to present our culture, but a dedicated effort by the government, the local community agency, I decline to dwell on that, but yeah, I think it's difficult, yeah, because we are a small community.
Understood.
Yeah.
Totally understood. Okay, there's one question in the chat by Siti Nor Amanina. What other aspects of the Kayan community fascinates you? Food, clothing, perhaps dances?
Me,
Ah,
as a Kayan, I
I'm
would be
asking you.
fascinated by all culture
Everything.
aspects. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you can read some messages in the chat
Oh
box.
yeah, yeah.
Sabun said, just like dialects, many of young generation may not be able to speak the original language. Even
Yeah.
Chinese dialects, not the younger generations are not speaking it anymore. So
yeah.
it's pretty common. So
Yeah.
anyone has one last call? Anyone has any question, burning question that you would like to ask before we move on to the next speaker at 4?
Yeah, I have. Hi,
Hey,
Dr. Rosalind. I'm Dr. Fida.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us
Thank you,
today.
Fida.
And that's interesting to know about your study. And you are in UTP. UTP is in Semenanjung, right?
Yeah.
Kayan is way over there. So
No, yeah, no way.
how's the logistics? Do you go back and forth? This is the rigor of corpus research here, everyone. Do you go back and forth? Do you have people in your group? You know, you have to do a corpus project. You need staff. So are you alone, or I'm curious?
Well, I am now in Curtin, Malaysia, which is in Miri, Sarawak. But when I did the two projects, I was in Perak. I was operating from West Malaysia, but I would come down when I have the grant to travel. I would come down and I would engage the DKTU, the Doh Kayan Pelongosan, which is basically an association of Kayan women in Baram. I would engage them, and we would do the documentation together in Miri. But I would personally visit my longhouse and do recordings in the longhouse as well. So it's a lot of actually, the distance is there, but when we are given the opportunity to travel, then we would dedicate at least 1 or 2 weeks, usually at least 2 weeks, come down and do the recording. Yeah.
All right. And the websites that you gave just now are the documentation of your work.
Yes.
And but you were saying just now, where are you at, right? Rahana was asking where are you?
Yes.
So it's just feeding and updating your website, is it?
At the moment, yeah. At the moment, feeding the website and also doing the living dictionary thingy, yeah. So I'm still working on that. Hopefully, I'm also applying again for ELF, Endangered Language Fund. So ELF has been very supportive of my works. They have given us 2 grants already. So I'm hoping for the 3rd grant, which I might, use to do the dictionary, the ethnographic dictionary. So that would be something that I would be doing again, probably next year, if I am fortunate to have the
So
content.
one of the contribution of corpus linguistics is to document all that into
Yeah.
a dictionary and lexicography studies, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rosalind. Off to you, Christina.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you again, Dr. Rosalind.